and welcome to Journeys and Journals. I'm Bernie Martin Beck, and I get to find interesting people to talk to about history. This is no exception. Today we're traveling up and down Oregon, and well, let's start at the Oregon coast and find out what our guest's connection is. I'd like you to meet Dwight and your wife,
Karen.
Karen.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to Journeys and Journals.
Thank you.
What's your connection with Oregon coast?
I suppose the connection would be, Bernie, since we're both Oregonians in the past. We're from Michigan now. But the connection would be that we just fell in love with the Oregon coast. We had the privilege of living down in Coquille. I don't know, have you ever heard of Coquille?
Oh, of course.
That great town, that lumber town of Coquille. So we lived in Coquille, and of course that's just a hop, skip, and a jump from Bandon by the Bay and Coos Bay and
Marshfield.
That whole Pacific coastline, and we have loved the Pacific, rugged Oregon coast from the get-go.
I agree. And when I heard you say that, I thought, oh, please tell me more. Where was your first stop in Oregon, or what brought you?
My first stomping grounds turned out to be the city of Roses, Portland, because my mom and dad moved to Portland, Oregon from, of all places in the world, Guam.
Oh, really?
From Micronesia in the not quite the South Pacific, but they moved from Guam to Portland. I was going to college at the time in Tennessee. In fact, Karen and I were both going to college in Tennessee. And so when I came out after my junior year, my folks had moved on to Northeast Fremont, 12505 Northeast Fremont.
Oh,
that's the address. And I worked construction in a place called Gladstone, which is just south of Portland, where we happen to be right now, as a matter of fact.
Right.
So that's the beginning. I started out in Portland, and then the story goes from
didn't
there.
know this lovely lady then.
I knew her then, but she was back. She's a Southern belle, and grew up in Atlanta. She was from Indiana at the time, then moved to Carolina, North Carolina.
So you were doing the communicating between Oregon and...
Part of that time we were trying that communication business, yes.
A long distance courting.
Long distance. We had courted, we dated a couple of years while we were in Tennessee, and then he was out here for a while. So we reconnected via phone and the long, we didn't have email in those days.
This was right after they invented electricity. So we did have telephones, but no email, no cell phones, of course.
And telephone was pretty costly, wasn't
Very
it?
costly. In fact, my graduation gift from college, from my folks, was my telephone bill paid off.
Yeah.
Yeah,
really.
You hadn't made a lot of money.
We would have started in debt.
Yeah, one marital debt that we would not have to start with. Yeah.
Oh, I love this story. So you'd moved out then where?
I was already out, actually. By the time I finished college, I moved to Roseburg. You of course, have heard of that great city, Roseburg.
70 miles
Yeah.
north of Better Life
And
TV.
so I'm a young bachelor, straight out of college, wet behind the ears, but that was my first living on my own experience in Oregon. And you can't beat the city of Roseburg.
You had an internship there, so
I did.
you were really learning the ropes.
I was learning everything simultaneously.
And Roseburg, you have raves about that?
Yep. Well, because anybody who's been to Roseburg knows that it's nestled right there by the Umpqua River. And you move out to the east, you have the community of Glide, you move south, you have Winston, you move north, you have the Sutherland. But Roseburg, obviously, Bernie, holds a special place in my heart simply because it was my first homestead as a kid out of school.
Right.
Yeah.
And you were phoning back and forth.
Oh, we were trying every
angle we could do.
right.
Letters, and pictures, and...
But I finally flew her out. I said, I want you to come out for Thanksgiving. My folks live in Portland. You come on out. So Karen flew out. You would remember it, I hope. Eastern Airlines. You remember Eastern Airlines?
Yeah.
So Eastern had a flight from, I don't know where you got on.
Chattanooga.
Chattanooga, Atlanta, maybe then straight
In-
out to Portland.
Straight,
Yeah.
nonstop.
Yeah, it could have
I
been.
think it was.
Yeah.
And what did you think of Northwest?
Well, you know, my mother was actually raised in Tacoma, Washington, and she always told me, if you ever move to the Northwest, you will become a Northwesterner. And I said, oh no, I'm always going to be a Southern girl. And she said, well, if you ever move out there, you'll see. They don't even carry umbrellas very often.
No.
And I thought, they don't carry umbrellas when it rains, and it rains so much. But anyway, so coming out here, all these big, beautiful trees, I was just so in awe. And the mountains, oh,
Yeah, we
I
took her
loved
out.
it.
It was Thanksgiving.
yes.
And my folks were having their 25th wedding anniversary. So we celebrated that in the evening. I wanted to propose to Karen with a beautiful view over Portland. It was
And it
raining.
rained.
It was raining. Went up to where the VA hospital is on West Portland, you know, overlooking the city, looking towards the east. But it just didn't seem the right place to make the proposal. So we ended up back at my folks' house. And
Well, you also took me down to where there were supposed to be fountains. Was it the Civic
oh
Center
yeah,
or something?
you know the fountains in downtown Portland,
You're
but
right.
they had turned the water off, so there was
There were no
there
fountains.
were no romantic fountains in the background, just the fountain coming down from heaven, as it were. So anyway, we got engaged that night. I asked her. I said, "Wilt thou?" And she wilted, and that began the journey. But the very next day, Thanksgiving, in the afternoon, or was it Friday?
It was
the
Friday.
day after Thanksgiving, we went up to Mount Hood, to the
And it was
meadows,
snowing.
and it was snowing. So
And I love
she saw the
snow.
snow and the mountains, and you know, of course, anybody who sees the Cascades, that's just an instant winner as well.
So then you were to be wed. That
We were
Yep, got
how
married
much
that June.
longer? In June.
In June, that following
6
June.
months later, 7 months later.
Karen graduated with her nursing degree, and so
You're a nurse.
Yes.
But I heard last night that you sing like an angel.
Well, I don't know about that.
You sang a very ancient song.
Well, it's actually a fairly new song, but ancient words, over 100 years old.
yeah.
But yes, I do that on the side. Not professionally, it's just something I get
I-
roped into doing every now and then.
It was simply beautiful, and the
Thank
words
you.
in there are repeated over and over again. It
Yes.
comes from
The words of William Miller.
Mm-hmm.
really
over 100
was
years ago.
very exciting because I love history, and my grandparents were part of the 1890s.
Were they here in Oregon, Bernie?
No, actually South America, the Westphal family.
Okay.
And everyone seems to know one Westphal or
Sure,
another that
sure.
because they had so many children,
Mm.
not our particular branch, but other branches,
Mhm.
that, and it's a funny name. You know, it's very German, and
Mhm.
so
But yeah, since you brought this up, now we're doing this whole thing unscripted, of course, but since you brought it up, Bernie, Karen's grandfather, German name Oswald, they were also in South America about the same time the Westphals were there. Only they were in Bolivia and
They were
Colombia.
in Chile, Peru, and Bolivia.
Yeah, there it is.
mother's born in Chile. Is this a small world?
It is.
Yeah.
It
Well,
is.
when you got married, this is where?
We got married in Charlotte, North Carolina, because
Right.
my
So-
parents were living there
Our
at the
folks are
time.
living there.
And it was one of those picture-perfect days that didn't rain?
It
No,
didn't rain. It was a
no.
beautiful day.
It was
Yeah.
a gorgeous day.
Yeah.
We were the second wedding in this church. It was a brand new
new
church.
church.
The first wedding did not have carpeting. Our wedding had carpeting, and still to this day, the carpeting little fuzzies or whatever
Right.
are up inside my dress and between the folds and all. It's funny to see that.
Memories,
Yes.
wonderful memories. Now, then where did you take your bride? Was this Roseburg
Are you
connection?
getting that personal? Bernie, please. No, I see your
let's-
question now. I now understand what you're asking. Bernie, where I took Karen after our honeymoon, which was on Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
I think I'm blushing.
Yeah, I know, which is a beautiful resort town in South Carolina. We moved back to Portland.
Right.
And we're here in Portland for only for a few months, like about 3 months.
Yeah, just
And
the
then I had to
summer.
go back to graduate school at Andrews University, where I happen to be pastoring right now.
In Michigan.
In Michigan, yeah.
You mean that beautiful lake is just in your backyard.
That beautiful
yeah.
lake, the largest freshwater lake in the world, is in 12 miles from our backyard.
St. Joseph, here I come,
Yeah,
Michigan.
come on.
That's right.
Mhm. So anyway, we spent three months in Portland, then went back for graduate school, 2 years to get my master's, and then came back to Oregon.
Well, where'd you land that time?
Ooh, I was hoping you would ask that. We landed in a place called Springfield.
It's a beautiful name.
Ah, Springfield's
It's
a
a
great
nice
town.
town.
Eugene, Springfield. And we were actually assigned a beautiful little, have you ever heard the song, The Little Brown Church in the Vale?
Mm-hmm.
The Little Brown Church in the Vale. This little church, I believe it was a Methodist church when it was built. This little church, right by the Fall Creek,
Oh,
down from the Lowell Dam, that was our first church as a young married couple. And it has, still does, because we were there for the 100th anniversary a few years ago. It has the bell cord inside the church with the bell tower, and somebody has to pull that cord, and the church begins to chime across, literally across the valley. It's just one of those
Very
picturesque, picture postcard kind of parish.
I think this is beautiful, like perfect for the new couple.
Yeah,
To
we
come
loved
to
it.
this.
Yeah, Fall Creek. You have
They were
you have
wonderful
you have
people,
Oak
too.
Ridge up the road, and Dexter, Lowell, Fall Creek right there, and just about Jasper, and then Springfield. So it's about 15 miles, 20 miles from Springfield.
This was a wonderful time for newlyweds.
Yeah, it was great.
It was.
Yeah.
You had your own piece of perfect,
Yeah.
the block.
Mm.
But then, you were still young and doing intern work, or
Right. We were actually we were pastoring the little Fall Creek church and the youth pastor of the Springfield church where we were.
next move? Because I know young people are often moved from place to
Yeah.
place, but still in Oregon.
Still in Oregon, so our next move came.
January
The orders were passed down from Portland, got all the way down to Springfield. Dwight and Karen, you're moving now to Coquille.
Over to the
So
coast.
so that's when we made the move to Coquille, where we would spend 3 years. Coquille and Myrtle Point, just 10, 12 miles apart. And I got to tell you a story about Coquille.
Please.
Because we've been bumping into people here in Gladstone who've reminded us of this story. So we said, okay, we want to go down and look at the community first. They said, yeah, go down there, look at it, see the parsonage and the little church that's there. So we drive down from Springfield, come down through Cottage Grove, then cut over to Reedsport, right? Drain. Where's Drain in relation to Reedsport?
South of Cottage Grove.
Okay, it's Cottage Grove, Drain, Reedsport, Coos Bay, and then we're driving in now. Gray, December, wet Oregon day. We come around the corner, and Bernie, there is this beautiful lake just spread out as far as the eye can see. And I said, I looked on this map. I don't remember ever seeing a lake on the map. So when we got into town and we met some of the people there, church members, and we said, this is wonderful. You have a lake
Like
here.
a little resort town is what we looked at it like.
And they started laughing and hooting because, as it turns out, that patch of farmland always floods in December and January. And so
we
now,
thought it was a lake.
And with the eyes of them,
of a
it looked
visitor.
like a lake.
Yeah, well, absolutely. It's just this
We didn't
body
know it
of
was a
water off to
cornfield.
the hills. And so anyway, they were just talking about it over lunch yesterday. Oh, we remember when you came and you said you wanted to buy a boat because you were so excited there was a lake. But anyway, Coquille's a wonderful, it's just a very picturesque
it is.
logging community. Yeah, Roseburg lumber was there, Georgia Pacific was there, and so it was just.
There were 3 large lumber mills there.
No, we haven't heard anything about what happened next. Where did you go after these 3 wonderful Oregon
You want to
towns?
give the next bit of the travel off?
Well, the next we moved to Salem, Oregon.
And
We were in the eastern part of Salem, and we enjoyed our time there. It was a little bit strange for me because when we were living in Coquille, we were not close to any shopping. You could go to Coos Bay. There was a little, what was it called, a little pony village or something
Pony
like that,
Village,
shopping.
that was it.
It was very little. So we had our 3-week waiting list, is what we call it, of things we think we needed. And then we drive all the way to Eugene. Well, we get to Salem. I'm 1 mile from the mall. Ooh, that was dangerous. But we enjoyed it there. We were right on the outskirts of the town, so we felt like we were in the country. If we went walking down the block just a little ways, we could see Mount Hood on a good day.
and the state capitol there.
Oh,
You're
of
right,
course,
the
yeah.
Lisa.
state
Us
capital,
there.
yeah, beautiful.
Well, we moved from the Bay Area in California, where we were 1 mile from anything and everything we'd want, to rural Oregon, back home.
Yeah.
And so I, remember needing a new blouse and going to the grocery store, and that was the best you could go, was to Fred Meyer's to get a new blouse.
Yeah.
Changes that we've experienced.
Oh, yes. Bernie, I was always raised in bigger cities,
Right.
Atlanta, Chicago, Indianapolis. And then we get married and we moved to this little tiny town of Coquille. And I walked into the post office one day to get some postage stamps. And I said, I'm going to write you a check. I wrote the check. Do you need to see my ID? And they go, oh, no, Mrs. Nelson, we know exactly who you are. And that really blew me out of the water. I thought, how does he know who I am? Why does he know who I am? And I was just not real sure about living in this little tiny town where everybody knows everybody. But it ended up being such a wonderful, warm experience for us down there that I love little towns now. I don't want to live in a city. I like being out away from all that activity now. And I never experienced that till we moved to Coquille.
And things like the mountains just in your backyard.
Yeah, that's what we miss in Michigan. When we left Salem, we moved to Michigan 28 years ago. So we've been 28 years at Andrews University, pastoring the Pioneer Memorial Church on that campus. But the mountains, every now and then in Michigan, we'll see a cloud formation that will look like a distant, kind of an outline silhouette of a mountain. We'll say,
we go,
oh, could it be?
You tell yourself.
Yeah. So that, of course, is what makes Oregon so special, because you have the dry desert on the eastern half. You have the mountains, then the Cascades up and down the state. You have the Willamette Valley, Umpqua Valley, right down to Grants Pass, on down to Medford, that whole fertile strip, and then the coastline.
And then you head into California, more mountains and more rivers.
Yeah.
So, and this is our new area is clear into Nevada, and we welcome the Nevada people who are watching. It's exciting how Better Life TV's just expanded and expanded.
That's
it started
wonderful.
in one little county.
In Grants Pass, is that where it started?
Right.
Yeah.
And the first program that I did was Josephine Journals, which was named for the county. Someone said, well, we're expanding and you'll have to change the name. So it's now Journeys and Journals.
It's Journeys and Journals.
Right.
Yeah, I like that.
And it's been so much fun. Hundreds of guests have sat,
I can imagine.
maybe not these exact chairs, but in our studio. And by the way, we are filming from Oregon City. Well, no, Oregon City is the next town, and
We're in
that's
Gladstone.
early pioneer city.
true.
That was the end of the Oregon Trail.
It was. And the city on the other side of us was called Stumptown.
Stumptown, huh?
And somebody said, that's not a very nice name. Let's call it Portland.
Is that right?
So that's a little of that history. And by the way, before you go back to Michigan, I want to send you with a book that is the history of Better Life TV. The Wagners, Evelyn and Delmer Wagner, were students who he had been a ham radio operator, and he knew electronics, and he knew that things like Better Life TV could happen. And people said, not in Southern Oregon. You folks don't know what it takes to get on the air. He said, we can do it. And it's been wonderful. It's brought all these camera people on board, and it's brought
That's great.
everything's being filmed here for us. I want to get back to, you mentioned Michigan. And you know, I've got a dear friend there, and I just am going to send a message with you to Leona Running.
Oh, dear Leona.
Dr. Running.
You bet.
She's only 94 or so.
It's probably 93, 94. Brilliant mind. Here's a woman who knows the ancient Near Eastern languages, plus Greek, Hebrew, Ugaritic. I was going to say Sanskrit, but I'm sure she would know Sanskrit.
Cuneiform.
And cuneiform as well.
And German.
And I took classes from her in graduate school.
And she's just been my dearest friend, so
Yeah,
I'm going to send a love message home
You
with
do that.
you.
We'd be honored to deliver it for you.
You've had many people who have come from Oregon, so this area, to your school. And, you know, we watch you on Better Life Television because you're our Sunday morning program there quite often.
Are we? Okay.
But I don't always see that colored hair. Have you started dyeing it?
What color is it showing up in Grants Pass as?
She's just started maturing is all.
I find this we of course are looking at some videos that were filmed a little earlier.
Oh, well,
and
those
so
were, that was a little darker days. You're right. That was a dark chapter of our lives.
Yes.
Speaking of, but you've got some bright chapters, and I'd love
we
to have
do.
you share about your family. Tell me, are you family folk?
We are family folk. I should let Karen do the family talking as well.
Well, people now ask us how many children we have. Well, we've doubled
Yeah.
Okay.
because they've married. So we say 4 now, but we actually have 2.
And we're, you know, one is a boy and
Kirk
one a
is
girl.
31. Our oldest, Kirk, is 31. He's a physician's recruiter for a 7-campus hospital in southwestern Michigan.
Oh.
Yeah, we're really proud of him. He loves his work. He's just very much a people person. And so he recruits physicians from across the country. He's married to a beautiful little girl. They've only been married not quite 2 years. Next month.
It's coming up.
She's a social worker, has her master's in social work, and they just bought a house 3 miles from us.
Oh.
Yeah,
so-
we're glad because that kind of means they'll stick around for a while.
And we're hoping grandkids will be right behind that purchase.
That sounds like the Queen and the Queen of England wishing when they would be having children.
Yeah, William and
For
Kate.
William and Kate.
Yeah. Our little girl Chrissy's 25. She lives right here in Estacada. So there's another Oregonian town, Estacada. Her husband, Andrew Nethkin. They just built a house in Estacada, and Andy actually joined the U.S. Army Rangers as a medic.
Oh.
Was into his 2nd term. Got sent over to Baghdad when George Bush had that surge, you remember?
Right.
So Andy ended up in Baghdad, in Sadr City, the worst part of Baghdad, and came back with 17, as a medic, 17, and we're grateful he came back, of course,
Absolutely.
but 17 documented concussions that he suffered in those Jeeps and whatever they call those Humvees, and as he's out saving lives and trying to tend to the wounded. So we're very proud of our boy.
Oh, this is wonderful.
He has served the nation. He's given of himself, and at a high price. But here he is back in Oregon. He's working for the federal government now, works at the federal building outside of Lloyd Center here in Portland.
It sounds like you've got roots that'll stay in Oregon now.
You know what, Bernie? That just may turn out to be true.
That's wonderful. I don't know if you'll visit Crater Lake this time, but they've had more snow
Have they really?
ever.
Really?
Really?
We've been to Crater Lake, of course, and what a
And the
place.
lodges, the Great Lodges, the 3rd of the Great Lodges is being restored at
Oh,
the Oregon Caves.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just a beautiful place to visit history. You've got a few minutes just as we close here. What would you like to share about the value of parents, grandparents, you name it? What's the plus?
The plus in all relationships, Bernie, is the chance to deepen life in the context of another human being. That's what relationship is. Beyond you're the grocer or the businesswoman, beyond that, just that casual contact kind of relationship. I'm talking about the meaningful relationships that every human being is hungry for. It doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter where you're from. I travel all over the world as a part of the work I do now. Any culture, any race, there is a hunger for relationships. And so the value for parenting, or we hope grandparenting one day, the value of any relationship is the opportunity to go deeper with somebody. Because it's in that, it's when we begin to take our masks off, when we start becoming more authentic and transparent, that life really hits its mother load. And that to me, Bernie, is the goal of life. Now, you would expect me to say this, and I'm going to say it on your television program. The ultimate relationship of all is a relationship with the God who made life possible.
And loves us?
And loves us in the process, in spite of ourselves. Yep. That's the big relationship. But every other relationship is a network that binds our hearts.
Well, and because it's called a family,
Yep.
we're part of the family.
Yep.
Isn't that beautiful?
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know how to thank you both for
Well,
coming today.
It's been a privilege to be here with you. Thank you.
And this beautiful library is just perfect. But next time I'd like to do an interview with you and your kids. Come to Southern Oregon and
We'd
we'll
love
show
to do
you
that.
Grants Pass and the
Lovely.
Rogue Valley and the wild and scenic Rogue River.
Love it.
I'm Bernie Martin Beck, and it's my privilege to talk to folks who have history, tell their stories. This has been an incredible opportunity just to learn more. Thanks for tuning in.